I stood before this audience in a similar spirit of reflection and concern for our Ummah to speak on a theme in 2018, the theme that the organization was dealing with at that time was, so this is for history. So if any of you have forgotten it, I am sure if I ask people here, now what was your theme in 2018? I'm sure not many of you will remember. So I still have it. In fact, it was a coincidence, you know. I was rearranging my office, you know, moving the shelf, arranging it, chairs and table. I like to do that every year. It gives me, you know, like, I mean, because in the university, you can be in the office for 20 years. We know of professors that, you know, they've been in their office since maybe when they were lecturer 2, you know, before they even become like senior lecturers. And so I like to change the direction and things like that. It gives me some kind of, I don't know how to describe it. So it was one day that I stumbled on the back that was given to me, the folder, and so I saw it. I said, these people have invited me this year, so I'm going to talk about that for record, right? And I also tried to link what we are doing today to that lecture. So that theme of that lecture was religion as an indispensable tool of youth. Then the sub-theme was labeling in Islam. Okay, so that lecture was, I believe, driven by an anxiety about how labels, how sectarian identities, and exclusionary tendencies, you know, were, you know, fragmenting Muslim youths, Muslim communities, and weakening our collective moral voice. So 7 years later, the theme, you know, before us today, you know, we can say, you know, shows a significant maturation, okay, of concern. And we are moving from that. We are not just dwelling or just speaking about unity. We are moving to more significant, impactful issues. So I want to commend you again for coming up with this very beautiful theme for this year. So we are no longer only asking how to remain united. Right? We are now asking how to be empowered. Not just to be united, but how to be empowered. That's the question now. And not empowerment in abstraction. We are not just talking about empowerment in abstraction, but empowerment that is rooted in faith and translated into sustainable livelihood. So this progression is important. You know, unity. It's good that we attain unity, but unity without empowerment becomes fragile. You know, when you are united, but you are not really empowered, you know, your unity is fragile. Okay, you can lose it at any time. Faith without livelihood, you know, becomes vulnerable. If you have faith, the iman is there, but you don't have the source of living, you know, you are still one leg in, one leg out kind of thing. That is why we are taught by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we should pray against poverty, right? Every morning. It's part of the prayer that the Prophet encouraged us to pray. So meaning that even the Prophet, I mean, who has higher iman than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yet he's not saying that because I have iman, I don't need livelihood, I don't need to pray against poverty, iman is sufficient. No, he's praying every day against poverty. So we are saying that the faith without livelihood makes you vulnerable. Livelihood without faith becomes hollow. Okay, if you have your livelihood but you don't have faith, what you have, you lose meaning in it. You lose the full satisfaction in that livelihood that you have. So here you see the genius of Islam. You know, the genius of Islam lies in its refusal to separate the spiritual from the material. Okay, the sacred from the social, or you can even say the mosque from the marketplace. Islam is not trying to separate all this in that, okay, if you are following Islam, you should only focus on God and God and God. Don't think of what you eat, how you live, and things like that. Just, there are people who live like that. We have monks, right? They just want to stay in one place, just keep trying to reach one spiritual level. This is not the teaching of Islam. He wants us to balance it. You should seek for your livelihood. You should also seek God's grace, divine closeness, proximity to Allah. So everything. This is where the genius of Islam. Like, this is why. So those of us in Islam, this is why we love Islamic studies. It gives us. We can, go into the spiritual. We can also go into life. Everything is within Islam. That is why when I talk to my students about this field that you are, we in Islamic study, we study Islam as a civilization, not just as a religion. As a civilization, how it has built people, made people more scientific in their approach. So it is out of Islam that these people were motivated to do all these things. So today, you didn't give me time more. The lecturer gave me. So today I want to invite you to think with me carefully, critically, and honestly about what it truly means to empower the Ummah through faith, grounded and sustainable means of livelihood. Now, to start the lecture, because I think so there are three ideas that I think is embedded in the theme of this conference. There is the issue of empowerment, there is the issue of Ummah, and there is the issue of sustainable livelihood. These are three key ideas in the theme. So what is empowerment in Islamic thought? So here I'm saying that empowerment in Islamic thought does not simply mean having money, having power, having influence. Okay? Because some people may want to define empowerment in that light: money, power, influence. That if you have all these things, you are okay. We are saying from Islamic thought, empowerment goes beyond money, power, and influence. Islam is not saying you should not go for all that, but it doesn't stop at that when we talk about empowerment. It refers, in Islamic thought, empowerment refers to the ability of individuals and communities to live with dignity, moral agency, and resilience. So apart from money, power, influence, we are adding dignity, moral agency, and resilience. So how do I know this? Where did I get this from? So that you won't think I'm just making this up. Allah reminds us in the Quran that true honor, and dignity belong to faith that is based on moral consciousness. And I'm referring to the ayah in the Quran that says, "Man kana yuridu al-izza, falillahi al-izzatu jami'an." This is Quran 35 of the Quran. I think Surah Al-Fatir, verse 10. "Man kana yuridu al-izzata, falillahi al-izzatu jami'an." Whoever seeks honor whoever seeks honor, then to Allah belongs all honor. Okay? So empowerment to us is not some kind of borrowed validation. We are saying that it is earned. Empowerment is earned through alignment with divine guidance. Where as we seek the money, as we seek the power, as we seek the influence, we should make sure that it aligns with divine guidance. So if you have the money and it's not aligning with divine guidance, if you have the power and it's not aligning with divine power, if you have the influence and it's not aligning with divine power, then you are still in serious problem. Okay, it's not complete. Okay, so it is a moral community, you know. But okay, so that's empowerment. Now, the concept of Ummah is the second key issue here. When we say the concept of Ummah in Islam, Ummah does not. We are not just talking about geographic category, or what we can say demographic category, just Muslims. That it goes beyond just being Muslims. We are saying that Ummah is a moral community. Okay, a moral community bound by shared responsibility, mutual care, and collective accountability. This is what makes you okay? Shared responsibility, like it's not just one person that is doing all this. When I came in, people were doing electrical work, they were doing electronic work. I'm sure many of them, it's not what they are trained in, right? They just feel that this must be done, and we came together to do that. So shared responsibility, mutual care, collective accountability, all these are part of the concept of Ummah in Islam. How do we know this? From the Quran also. You know, the Quran is the one that the Quran describes the Ummah to us. It says, Kuntum khayrul ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. Okay? So the best community, you know, brought forth for humanity, you know, enjoying what is right, forbidding what is wrong, believing in Allah. This is also what brings you here together. You are trying to urge one another to do what is right. You are trying to forbid one another to do what is wrong. I know of people who have traveled from Lagos to Ilorin here to stay because of the noise. Because in Lagos it will be carnival in streets, you know, competition and this kind of thing. No peace for people. Anyway, depending on where you are staying, but in many places in Lagos, look at Ilorin here. People were moving in Christmas, they were like, what's going on here? Do you get it? I mean, people who came from Lagos. So, that's a kind of community where you urge one another to do what is right, to forbid one another from doing what is wrong, believing in Allah. This is what makes the Ummah. So this description from the Quran, you know, you see that it places ethical responsibility, the idea of good, evil, you know, that's what I mean by ethical responsibility, at the center of communal identity. Okay? The fact that you are joining one another in good and you are joining one another to forbid evil, this is what gives your community the identity. Okay, it's the center of your coming together. So, an Ummah that consumes without producing, that complains without contributing, or that prays without planning, you know, betrays the moral weight of this calling. Now, to the third idea in the theme, that's sustainable livelihood. Yes, so you didn't just say livelihood, you are talking about sustainable livelihood. So that means it's more than you are talking about something that is beyond daily wage, earning your daily wage. It's more than that. You are referring to economic activity, that is lawful, that is dignified, that is socially responsible, and capable of enduring across generations. This is what a sustainable livelihood can do. Okay, so sustainability. When we talk about sustainability in Islam, it's not something that we are just hearing. It's not an idea that is new to Islam. Okay, it is already embedded in the Quranic prohibition of waste, of extravagance, and injustice. The reciters of the Quran that came here, they made reference to these things: issues of waste, issues of extravagance, issues of injustice. They talked about quorum, right? And in their recitation. So when we look at the Quran says, "Wakulu washrabu wala tusrifu. Inna Allah la yuhibbu musrifin." That is, eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. Indeed, Allah does not love the wasteful. So when sustainability is being talked about, they are also telling us not to be wasteful, to use things in a just manner, right? So that it's something that you are to use for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. You want to finish it in 5 years, right? That's the idea of sustainability. So Islam, from the Quran is telling us that we should eat, we should drink, and we should not be wasteful, because Allah does not love people who waste. So a livelihood that destroys the environment, that exploits others, or corrodes one's faith, is not sustainable in Islamic sense. Meaning that when we are talking about sustainability, it goes beyond profitability. We are talking about not destroying the environment. We are talking about not exploiting others. We are talking about not engaging in things that corrodes your faith. So we are not saying that you cannot be profitable, but all these things must also be checked. So with these clarifications in mind, I want us to reflect on a fundamental question. And that is, why is empowerment through sustainable livelihood such an urgent concern for Muslim youth today? Why is it an urgent concern? It's something that we need to focus on today. And I want to believe, that the answer lies in the changing moral and economic landscape we inhabit in our contemporary time. We are living in a time when we've had youths that talk about education is a scam, right? That they don't want to go into education. I was listening to one of these Reels video, and the woman was talking about how she was invited to an occasion that if she had not been educated, right, they would have invited her to that. I think it has to do with the U.S. Embassy Consulate something program, and she was saying, I'm happy that I finally decided to go for education, because at a point, after JAMB has jammed her so many times in various ways, how you got the JAMB, or before you get the JAMB, like two years, low score, then she had the score, then no admission and things like that. She gave up. OLD finished, I'm not going again. But her father said, no, this education is what you are going to get. In fact, she went to the extent of telling us that when they gave her the money for her HND, they told his younger brother, Tele Kolo Oripe school me. Did you get it now? the brother had to follow her because they are afraid that that money that they gave her, she's going to buy mini shop. Can you imagine? Are you with me? So there are places because now what we see only I am not the Kinekan. My boyfriend says, you know, all those things that they put online. So these are the kind of things that you see in the community. My boyfriend once says, àwọn tó múra sí irú ọkọ̀ báyẹn tí wọ́n múra sí ẹ̀kọ́ wọn, right? Ó ní ibi tí nígbà yẹn yóò fine, ó ní ibi tó máa gbé ẹ dé, do you get it? Ó ní ibi tí bóyá ó ní beautiful shade, whatever that people use, money. There are certain places you need to be educated. Okay, so if you are not educated, your body has limit to where it can. Okay, your body, you use your body to a certain level. Okay, now what level? I want to express it, right? Are you with me? You know, that's another problem. That you will not be engaged in discussion, having issues and things like that. In fact, now what I do for my students, right? I hope none of my students are here. In my class, you know, now in the university, it's possible that somebody will graduate, and he or she might never have addressed our colleagues in class. Graduate, and part of the skills that, because when you are a graduate, you are already soldier, you are already an officer, or recruitment, meaning that people's lives will be in your hands. You will be taking decisions to affect lives. You are already a leader. How can I graduate a student? Everybody address our colleagues here. Kàwé tí wàá sọ pé ó fẹ́ lọ síta, ó fẹ́ lọ lead àwọn èèyàn. So in my classes, after class, I have debate topic. A máa pín male, female, ẹ wá ṣe debate. Ẹ múra yín mẹ́rin fún each topic. You are arguing for, you are arguing against. So ìkọ̀tẹ́ wọn máa rí nínú àwọn mẹ́rin, àwọn méjì ló máa wá lọ́jọ́ debate. Kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ sẹ́yìn méjì tó kù? Ó ní pé wọ́n ṣe wedding, wọ́n ní, you know, these excuses that people give. Ẹ sọ fún òun ló tún máa ṣe ní next class. Àwọn ní debate máa kàn. We are not going to exempt them. Ìyẹn ọ̀tọ̀. Part of what I also want them to learn from that is that, you see, ẹ̀yin mẹ́rin, mo gbé kẹ́yìn mẹ́rin kẹjọpọ̀. Kẹjọ decide pé topic báyìí òun la fẹ́ sọ, a fẹ́ defend the next week. Ríra yín ṣàjọ, because in some of the class máa rí pé ibẹ̀ lọ́tí ń fẹ́ pẹ̀rẹ̀ kan àwọn pé àwọn ní kó kọ́kọ́ lọ. You see lack of coordination. Lè máa bú Nàìjíríà ní ẹ̀yìn mẹ́rin ríra yín péjọ pé ókè ká tiẹ̀ ṣe ní Zoom àbí ká ṣe Google Meet ká meet níbẹ̀. Tẹ́lá tó bá yẹ kó mọ́tò náà ni. Over problem, but you cannot coordinate 4 people, and you want to coordinate 10. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. So these are some of the challenges. I ensure that they should know that the education is more than just confer the class. Your education is more than that. Are you with me? So these are some of the issues that I believe that we need to address. That this is a challenging time. I'm talking about changing moral and economic landscape that we are in, and that is why empowerment through sustainable livelihood is very important. So when we look at across Nigeria, and indeed much of the Muslim world, not just Nigeria, young people they face a convergence of challenges. Okay, And I believe these challenges is what brought you to this theme also. Unemployment, right? Underemployment, because you can be employed and still be underemployed. There are shrinking opportunities, right? We also have digital disruptions, things that normally you'll be looking for people to help you do it, right? AI will just design website for you. It will design, you will do Photoshop, but you can wow, when you're picture, it's so fine that ultimately design with AI to find you, are you with me? So shrinking opportunities are there, digital disruptions are there, and a growing disjunction between education and employability. So these pressures, often generate frustration, often lead to loss of self-worth, and sometimes susceptibility to destructive ideologies or ethical survival strategies. So we are saying that Islam does not deny hardship, but it refuses despair. To lose hope is what Islam discourages. It doesn't want you to have such thought. Hopelessness, because of these challenges, because of this unemployment, and you now give up. You now lose every moral guidance because of hardship that you are facing. This is something that Islam refuses to accept. It's not saying that you won't find things difficult, but that you just give up like that is discouraging. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taught a community that faith must express through work, through effort and responsibility. Faith must express itself through work, effort and responsibility. So he said, no one has ever eaten better food than that which he eats from the work of his own hands. That is the prophet speaking. That no one has ever eaten a better food than somebody who is eating from what he did. And in fact, in one of the narrations of this hadith, he gave example that Prophet Dawood is someone like that. He only eats from his labor. He doesn't eat things that comes from any other place apart from what he worked for. So this is one of the teachings of our religion on livelihood, on empowerment, on these issues that we are talking about. That I'm saying that this hadith establishes for us that labor as a form of dignity and moral, excellence. So what we see in Muslim society is like begging, dependency, urgent 2K kind of thing. These are things that we are discouraged from. Begging, dependency, idleness, and things like that. Idleness is something that, in fact, everyone will even pray against laziness. If you are following the prophetic prayer, even laziness, we pray against it because that Islam wants us to move away from. You should know what you want to do in a day. You should know this today I have plans, so it's not that I don't have anything to do. Okay? Begging, dependency, and idleness are discouraged. Not because poverty is sinful, right? We are not saying to be poor is a sin, because we know of some religion. To buy poor, your God is not with you. This is not what we are preaching in our deen, right? That one is poor is not the issue. Right? But we are saying that human agency is sacred, okay? And at this point, it is crucial to confront a dangerous misunderstanding that has quietly infiltrated some Muslim spaces. And here I'm talking about the idea that religiosity is opposed to economic ambition. That you cannot be religious and still have that economic ambition. Okay? This is something that we also need to disprove. Because imagine that piety requires that you will withdraw from productive life, right? And there are some people who hold that for you to be successful, you have to, compromise your morals. This is something that Islam is also trying to draw our attention to. That is, you can be successful and still maintain piety. You can be successful and still be productive. You can be successful and still maintain your moral high standard. Don't compromise because you want to be successful and then you lower your moral standards. Today, it is, I don't know how to describe it. You give furniture people work. Hey, until you say to a Saturday. Something like that. If I told you the threats, we can follow Bakora, soldier, right? These are some of the challenges that we face, to find people with high moral standard to help you manage business problem. It's something that one is getting, I don't know, my students, I will use them as a reference because I always go beyond just teaching. There are certain things that I require from my students that so that I will be able to say, I tell them anyway, so that I will be able to say, right? So I take attendance every class. When she attendance, I will call your name. Sign by. Sign. So by me, I have a class with 300. She Maduro town ma fi sign kan. Wallahi Maduro. So okay, ojú kọ́ ẹ àti parí class o lè kọ sí paper kó fún mi kó padà wá sign. Màmá kò wá tó bá wá máa kí n pé do you get it? I can still nígbà tí èmi kan orí tí mo dúró báyìí wà tí wàá rí èèyàn kan tó máa wá látẹ̀yìn tó fẹ́ wá sign on behalf of somebody or pé ojú kan ó jẹ́ dáhùn yóò pẹ́ ọ. Mo á sọ fún ọ pé wallahi we study with people tó yẹ pé tá bá ń kọ attendance báyẹn, it can never be imagined that somebody tó wà lẹ́yìn ó máa wá síwájú máa ní kó ń sáré sign before àwọn tí ó rí tó mọ̀ pé báyìí ló ṣe ń lọ. So I teach them that why can't you be patient? Nígbà tó mọ̀ pé Anthony why tí wọ́n ṣe fẹ́ wá jump, it shows that something is wrong. Even tó bá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nírú bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn tó bá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n máa jẹ́ kó sign but wọ́n máa feel pé something is wrong with you, that you are not normal. Yes, because tá bá queue tó bá a máa mọ̀ra wa gá Nàìjíríà nílé tí o bá tọ̀ ní tó ṣe wọ inú queue níbi tá a ti tò àwọn ọ̀dẹ̀ ìjòkó ọ̀dẹ̀ dúró ọ̀ ní máa bẹ́ẹ̀ pé wọ́n kò máa wò pé kò láìpẹ́ pé wà okay. Are you with me? But here we now turn it to something that is normal. So I can't take this. So I will now tell them, okay, Mohan Koyiba, Rasulullah, he was known as Al-Amin and this and that. Mohan Ibe, Mohan Goruko at the end of the class. So the best thing. Really, to put your got sign. What is Al-Amin that you are suffering in class? What is it that you are now learning from that? So this moral is very important because if you have the knowledge, but that moral character is still lacking, it's still a problem because there are certain places that knowledge will take you to. That moral character is what they demand. Told you that knowledge, they need somebody that has integrity, So it's more than brilliant, only for class player. What do I do with that? But ṣé mo kó owó fún ẹ mo dẹ̀ lè wà sure pé màá gba owó padà bí wàá lọ invest yẹ sí nǹkan tá ní pé tá agree pé a máa invest yẹ sí. Kò ṣe pé láyé ni màá gbọ́ pé ó ṣe wedding ọmọ kan ìbọn ló ti lọ náwó bọ́ndù ẹ wá gbé sí Instagram. Are you with me? So these are issues that we need to address. We are saying that you can be successful and still not compromise the moral standard. Islam is saying that, okay, that success does not require moral compromise. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know him as a trader, okay. We know his companions also as farmers. They are merchants, they are administrators, they are artisans. Okay? So Islamic civilization was built by people that prayed at night and worked during the day. So who feared Allah, and they also mastered their worldly skills. So none of us here can say, oh, we are better than the companions, right? And we still know them as farmers, we know them as merchants, we know them as administrators, and they still maintain that close proximity to their Lord, the Most High. So we are saying that faith, is not a substitute for effort. Okay? It is the ethical compass. Faith is the ethical compass that gives effort meaning. Okay? Tawakkul, trust in Allah, does not mean waiting passively for miracles. Okay, when we are talking about tawakkul, it doesn't mean that you have to just wait for some kind of miracle to happen. It means a certain maximum effort while recognizing the limits of human control. So when a man, many of us must have heard this story of a man that asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam whether he should leave his camel untied and trust in Allah. The Prophet told him, "Ilaha wa tawakkal." Right? Tie it and trust Allah. So this instruction helps us to capture the Islamic philosophy of empowerment, meaning that Islam does not want us to engage in yahoo kind of business. Kind of attitude. This is not what Islam is telling us. So now let us consider the idea of sustainable livelihood more concretely. Now, in contemporary discourse, sustainability often focuses on environmental or economic continuity, and Islam expands this framework by adding moral sustainability to this idea, meaning that a livelihood must be halal in source, meaning that you are not just looking for a source of any source of livelihood, but you are looking for a halal source of livelihood. Ethical in process and beneficial in impact, meaning that wealth that corrupts character, wealth that undermines family stability, wealth that distances one from Allah is a liability and not an asset. Okay? So that is not the kind of wealth that we are looking for here, and that is not the kind of wealth that we are talking about. So for Muslim youth, we are saying this has profound implication. We are saying that we need to rethink success. We need to rethink success beyond quick money or social media visibility, because this is what is driving many of this immorality that we are seeing in our society. People just want people to be viewing them because you understand why go ya picture man now kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀. Are you with me? Mo kàn fi àwọn síta ẹ̀ mọ̀ ṣe worst things sí lórí ibẹ̀. So quick money, social media visibility and things like that, it means what we are saying here is that it means investing in skills. Islam is in support of investing in skills that serve society, that solves problems, create value. Are you with me? This is where you get your wealth from. That will make it Islamic. Just ask yourself, is what I'm going for, is it serving the society? What I'm going for, is it solving a problem? What I'm going for, is it creating value? Is it adding value? This is where wealth should come from. If you cannot answer this with your wealth, then you need to check what you are doing. Okay? So I'm saying that if you want wealth, this is how you get wealth. Serve the community, solve problems, and create value. So it means recognizing that dignity lies not in what one consumes, but in what one contributes. And the Quran also informs us, وَأَنْ لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى, and there is not for man except what he strives for. So at the same time, sustainability demands foresight. You need to have foresight. You need to think of long term, because many economic struggles in our communities, arise from short-term thinking. Short-term thinking, poor financial discipline and lack of planning. Okay, so these are issues that affect many people. They just think that if they have money, they can start that thing without planning, without investigating, without trying to see, okay, who have done this thing before? What are the challenges? I mean, this short-term issue is everywhere. You are supervising a student, you are telling the student, okay, you need to, before you start, you need to read works to know where knowledge is on that issue. Accordingly, learning 2 days. How much parí? O ti ṣe kíni? O ti parí. Ní ayé tí àìwá yìí 2 days. O parí literature review àwọn tí bẹ̀. So what I do as of I want to see the physical. O lè ní copy o lè ní hard copy. Mo máa kọ́kọ́ rí pé mo kọ́kọ́ ní 35 works báyìí náà. Are you with me? You go, okay, you have 35 works. Now you go and read. So the year, do you get it? You will not be able to say, okay, that's more this is why I want to contribute. But they don't know that all these skills are what they also need. Because of that is why so many people run into problems. Business fail because they've not done their market survey. So this is part of what we are. They are learning certain skills. But nítorí AI ti wá ń sìn, ogoro kó wá kọ̀ọ̀kan fún mi láàrin 2 days ó tẹ̀ máa gbé wá. Nǹkan ṣe ni mo fẹ́ parí ní next year. So dákun, màá sáré kan kíní ẹ̀ bá ń kà. Gbọ́. Ayé ètò ìmọ̀sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn fẹ́ ṣùgbọ́n Dr. Fahm ayé ọ̀nìwá. So please, we need to think of long-term plan. You cannot contribute originally if you just do some kind of shady work. It's not contributing anything. You are not showing where the knowledge is and be able to say, this is where I will contribute my own. Oh, till the gap. So these are some of the issues. Short-term thinking, we need to work on that. Poor financial discipline and lack of planning. So Islam encourages moderation, Islam encourages saving, Islam encourages intergenerational responsibility. So zakat, waqf, inheritance laws are not merely rituals, they are economic institutions designed to circulate wealth, reduce inequality, and sustain communal welfare. So a youth Ummah that ignores these tools, because these are tools in which we can help ourselves, we can contribute to the society, we can see how they can help us in our programs. Some of your programs can be helped by some of these kind of tools in Islam, facilities. that you can use to sponsor some of your programs. So, while complaining about, a youth Ummah that ignores these tools, while complaining about poverty has misunderstood its own tradition. I want us to pause here to address the specific role of youth in this conversation that I've been having. Youth, in Islam are not merely leaders of tomorrow, because that's what we often hear in our time. Finally. Okay. So there you go. Thank you. So I'm sure before that I will be done. Youth in Islam are not merely leaders of tomorrow, they are trustees of today. This is the one thing that I want. You are trustees of today. You are also part of the change that we want to see in our society. So the Quran praises the young believers who stood firm in faith against overwhelming pressure, and I'm sure many of us must have heard of the story of the companions of the cave, because the Quran told us, "Nahnu naqussu alayka naba'ahum bil haqq, innahum fityatun," right? "Innahum fityatun amanu bi rabbihim wa zidnahum huda." Right? They were youths who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. So this idea of many leaders of, in fact, I tell my students, when the one was leading this country, and Nigeria was bigger than this because of this, you see the Bakassi, right? When Ogoman was not 30, he got married in that we know history, right? So he was leading the country. So how can somebody now tell me, well, wà ní university, o máa sọ pé wàhálà yẹn kó o wà ní mọ̀kọ́ tó urgent àti important. So you cannot lead the country that he only the country gan young person ni kò ṣe àwọn àgbàlagbà tá à ń rí sí gan. Nígbà tí Nàìjíríà tàbí wà ní sọ pé Nàìjíríà tọ́ọ̀fù jù náà ní pé ajagun gbà yẹn. So don't tell me you cannot do this thing. You have to do it. You have to get it done. Get it? So the point I'm making here is this idea of that of tomorrow. You should see yourself as trustees of today, and that's why I'm making reference to that story of the companion. So the prophet himself entrusted leadership, scholarship, military responsibility, to young companions when they demonstrated competence and integrity. So empowerment of the Ummah therefore cannot be postponed, until old age or perfect condition. Okay, it begins with cultivating disciplined minds, ethical habits, and productive skills now. Okay, Muslim youth must see themselves not as victims of circumstance, but as agents of renewal. This does not deny structural injustice. We know that there are challenges there, economic hardships are there, but it insists that faith transforms how we respond to them, how we respond to this challenge. So in our current digital and globalized economy, new opportunities, new dangers coexist. Technology has lowered barriers to entry in education, entrepreneurship, and knowledge production. At the same time, it has intensified competition, promoted unrealistic lifestyles, blurred ethical boundaries. So sustainable livelihood in this context requires digital literacy anchored in moral clarity. So one must ask, not only can I do this, but what you should be asking is, should I do this? Okay? And who does this serve? Islamic ethics provides tools for navigating these questions: the principles of intention, the principles of accountability, the principle of justice, the principles of public benefits, remain relevant regardless of technological change. A Muslim coder, designer, trader, content creator must evaluate their work through these lenses: intention, accountability, justice, public benefits. So the prophet warned that defeat, and this is a very important hadith, that defeat will not move on the day of judgment. Right? Until one is asked how wealth was earned and how it was spent. Are you with me? How it was earned and how, meaning that economic issues is still being raised, not just going there. So in the economic department, issue economics will continue on the day of judgment. Right? This question alone should discipline our ambitions. As I draw towards the later part of this lecture, I want to return to the connection between unity and livelihood. In 2018, we reflected on how labeling fractures the Ummah. Today, we must recognize that economic marginalization also divides us. Okay, poverty breeds resentment. You know, that's why all those zakat work for. Islam wants wealth to spread, right? So poverty breeds resentment. Everybody don't complain. Every time one complain about leader, and they are seeing them in jeeps and just so poverty breeds resentments. Inequality breeds mistrust. Dependency breeds humiliation. Sustainable empowerment requires communal strategies, not individual hustle alone. Okay? Islam encourages cooperative models of economic life, partnership, cooperatives, interest-free financing, skills sharing, mentorship are all embedded in our tradition. So youth organizations such as these have a critical role to play in nurturing these models. Conferences should not, this is very important, conferences should not end with applause alone. They should generate networks, they should generate initiatives, they should generate accountability. I challenge this gathering to think beyond slogans. Faith must translate into training programs, ethical enterprises, and social investments. Sustainable livelihood is not charity, it is capacity building. It is the difference between feeding someone for a day and equipping them to feed themselves for a lifetime. In conclusion, empowering the Ummah through faith and sustainable livelihood requires a renewal of consciousness. It requires rejecting false dichotomies between religion and work, spirituality and strategy, worship and productivity. It requires Muslim youth who pray with understanding, work with excellence, and plan with foresight. Above all, it requires trust in Allah that inspires action and not excuses passivity. May Allah grant us clarity of vision, purity of intention, strength of effort. May He empower you to be builders, not merely critics, contributors, not consumers, and servants of humanity grounded in faith. May He make this conference a turning point for renewed commitment to dignified, ethical, and sustainable living. I thank you all for your patience and attention. May the peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah be upon you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.